Good evening. I'm Teresa Skubik, and this is Forum Daily for Monday, March 24th. Canada's 45th general election got underway Sunday with the leaders vying to become Canada's next prime minister, each positioning themselves as the best to strengthen Canada's economy and stand up to U.S. President Donald Trump. Patriotism emerged as leaders hit the road with Canadian flags and talk of national pride. Liberal leader Mark Carney triggered the campaign midday Sunday by visiting Governor General Mary Simon and asking her to dissolve Parliament and set an election for April 28th. Speaking outside Rideau Hall following that meeting, Mr. Carney said that he is offering solutions rather than anger and division. And as the election begins, each main party leader has begun making their pitch for why they're uniquely qualified to lead the country. Mr. Carney leaned into his love for the country, saying that Canada, quote, has given me everything, and he's in the race, quote, because I want to give it all back to Canada.
For the 5 million Canadians aged 18 to 64 who can't afford it. I'll tell you something. Already, with the Liberal dental care plan, 1.8 million Canadians have accessed it. That's people over 65 and under 18. Pierre Poilievre thinks they don't exist. Thinks they don't exist. 1.8 million people. Now he thinks 5 million people don't exist.
Pierre Poilievre says that the Conservatives and not the Liberals are the ones to tackle Trump, slumping economic growth and affordability.
Today, the Liberals are asking for a fourth term in power. After swapping Justin Trudeau for his economic advisor and hand-picked successor, Mark Carney. But after the lost Liberal decade, the question is whether Canadians can afford a fourth Liberal term. After these out-of-touch Liberals inflated housing costs, drove up the cost of food, pushed 2 million people to food banks, unleashed crime on our streets, ruined our immigration system, blocked our resources, sent $500 billion to the United States, and made our economy more reliant on the Americans than ever before? Or is it time to put Canada first for a change with a new Conservative government that will axe taxes, honor hard work, build homes, cut taxes, lock up criminals, secure our borders, unleash resources to bring home our jobs, and stand up to Donald Trump from a position of strength?
For NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, he said that he is the leader the country needs to stand up to Mr. Trump, Mr. Poilievre, and Mr. Carney.
You deserve a prime minister you can trust to make decisions in your best interest, not to advance his personal wealth. And we know that someone who's going to be fighting in your best interest, that's not Mark Carney. He has spent his whole career serving the interests of billionaires, of shareholders, and CEOs. He makes decisions that benefit people like him. And Pierre Poilievre, his only solution is tax breaks for the wealthy, and that will cost you. He pretends he's on your side, but in the back rooms, he's cutting deals with the very billionaires, jacking up your rent and groceries.
We were joined by Jacques Shore, regulatory and government affairs partner at Gowling WLG, for more on what the top priorities will be for each party, starting with Mark Carney's Liberals.
Well, there's no question, first of all, they have a new leader, and they're going to want to make sure that this new leader is going to be known to Canadians in a very positive way. Clearly, what we've seen in the last 4 or 5 weeks is absolutely incredible. Just considering the polling that has gone on, when you compare this month and last year, it's a difference of night and day. The question is, can the Liberal Party actually maintain that momentum? They do have an incredibly strong candidate, someone who understands economic issues, someone who understands business issues, someone who's obviously very committed to doing whatever he can to actually take a place in Canadian history and make a very positive difference. I look at someone like Mark Carney also as someone who needs to demonstrate to Canadians he has a heart. He's already being painted as someone who is of CEO material, doesn't really understand the person on the little person, doesn't understand communities in the same way that maybe the other parties do, which I think is somewhat, unfair over that. I mean, you have to remember that Mark Carney for many years was a public servant. So he has to actually resonate in a way that demonstrates he understands government, he's been in government, he's taken on leadership roles. And one thing that he does have is an ability, I think, to share the message that he knows a lot of the people that he needs to deal with. And that's in Europe. He's already demonstrated that to Prime Minister Starmer. With Prime Minister Starmer, he's been recognized, obviously, to someone like President Macron, as someone that he would want to meet with. And then, someone who can really appreciate, I think, both the intellectual set, but also the set of individuals out there that are going to help him. He has a phenomenal Rolodex. If I could use an old expression, his contact list is enormous. And so the question is, who does he reach out to support him in his efforts, both on the global scale and also domestically? Because this is an incredibly, how can I say, it's a monumental election. This is an election in my lifetime. I don't think I've seen something like this. One might compare to 1988, but at the same time, there's absolutely no question that the world wasn't in the kind of turmoil that it's in right now. In 1988, it was about free trade. Here, it's much, much more than that.
We also discussed what the Conservatives need to do to fend off the Liberals' momentum in the polls.
Well, I think in another way, Pierre Poilievre also has to recognize that he's dealing with a very different person than Justin Trudeau. And sure, he can attack Mark Carney. He can attack the group that surround him by hammering the message that it's the same old. It's not easy to maintain that when new ideas are coming out and when there is a very different approach coming from a leader. I think it's extremely important for someone like Pierre Poilievre, who when I think about this and I think about the fact, think about two boxers that are in the ring, and that's basically where we're at right now. Well, one looked like he was going to have the full advantage, and all of a sudden, he's addressing issues with an entirely different opponent. But one thing that Pierre Poilievre may want to do is talk a little bit more about his team, talk about who he sees around him in the Conservative Party that is going to be able to support his initiatives, recognizing that the approach he takes, which is actually less focused at the moment, even today, it's not so much on President Trump. It really is about the working person. It's the one who understands what needs to be done. There was one particular clip I already saw about the importance of Canadians looking to trade work, so the people are going to be properly armed to deal with the things that they need to, whether it's in construction or other things. But I think that he really has to demonstrate that he's a guy who is liked, because, and maybe more than liked, because at the end of the day, Canadians are going to decide in this moment of significant assault on Canada. They're going to want to decide who can steer us best, who will navigate us best through all of this. So he has to demonstrate that people should be confident in him.
And lastly, we spoke about the NDP and the tough road ahead for them with their collapse in the polls.
It's not going to be easy. We've actually seen the erosion, I think, of support over the last few years. I'm not sure that, the way in which, and I think some people look at this, the way in which they supported the Justin Trudeau government through the last couple of years was necessarily to their benefit. There was a blurring in terms of what did they actually represent? Who were they? This is a very different group than those that supported Jack Layton. You're looking at pockets, I guess, in the country where the NDP could expect that they would continue to have that support. It's not the case today. We really find ourselves, and it may very well be as a result of the challenges from the United States at this moment, that it's the two key parties that have to play the role. It's almost as if you have to sit this one out. And I think a lot of Canadians are going to pay much less attention to what it is the NDP is dealing with, because this is serious. This is, for many, regarded as existential. How often does it happen where a U.S. president actually continues to extol the virtue of what Canada would be if we were the 51st state? So here we are. We're in a situation where, again, it comes down to the two individuals that have to work it out. Who's going to be left standing? Who's going to be on the ropes? We're going to see a lot of up and down. It's absolutely amazing how over these last few weeks, we've seen such a remarkable change. And look, pollsters like Nick Nanos, like an exceptional pollster with excellent commentary, said, look, that can change when you're looking at support that developed so quickly, that can diminish. So it really depends very much on how the two address each other. But I would think that at this point, most Canadians recognize that the biggest threat at the moment is what's coming from the South, and the importance for us to be able to stand strong and address the issues that we need to with a strong Prime Minister.
Coming up, we'll be joined by Liberal strategist Andrew Perez for more on the ongoing federal election.
I think Mark Carney needs to continue doing what he's been doing in his first week as Prime Minister, and that is to demonstrate leadership and to show Canadians that he is best qualified and best positioned.
The mayor of Edmonton is going to give federal politics another try. Amarjeet Sohi will take an unpaid leave of absence as he seeks a seat for the Liberals in the country's general election called for April 28th. Before becoming mayor, Mr. Sohi was a former Liberal MP and served as a cabinet minister during former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's first term. One of the country's Liberal candidates is a former mayor of Vancouver. Gregor Robertson was the mayor of the BC big city for close to a decade from 2008 to 2018, and before that was a provincial MLA for the New Democrats. He will run in the Vancouver Fraserview South Burnaby riding, held by former Liberal cabinet member Harjit Sajjan, who is not seeking re-election.
I've had the honor of leading one of Canada's biggest cities for 10 years as mayor, when Vancouver had the strongest economy of any city in Canada, while being one of the greenest, most livable, inclusive places in the world. Today, our country faces urgent, complex, and existential challenges, but we've faced hard times before. We know how to rise. We need serious, grounded, proven leadership, and there is no one better prepared to lead us through this moment than Prime Minister Mark Carney. I was honored when he asked me to serve Vancouver Fraserview, South Burnaby, where I'm focused on what matters most: housing, community infrastructure, and affordability, all while Team Canada stands up for our sovereignty, citizens, and our economy.
Today marks the first full day of the spring federal election campaign. The country's party leaders and hundreds of candidates will embark on a campaign which is already heavy on the theme of Canadian unity. The leaders of the three biggest parties are promoting themselves as the best positioned to handle the economic and sovereignty threats coming from U.S. President Donald Trump. Liberal leader Mark Carney campaigned this morning in Gander, Newfoundland, and Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet campaigned today in Quebec City. This morning, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre made a campaign announcement pledging to reduce income taxes for the average Canadian worker by 15%.
Today, as we kick off the election, I'm announcing that common sense Conservatives will cut income taxes by 15% for the average Canadian. The average Canadian earns $57,000.
A couple, each making the average income, will save $1,800. The average worker will save $900.
But because we'll cut the rate on the lowest income bracket, everyone who pays income tax will pay less of it. As a percentage, modest income people will save the most. This means you'll keep more of your paycheck and hard work will pay off. Seniors will pay less tax on their retirement income. Welders, waitresses, and other workers will keep more of their tips and paychecks. We'll free up money for this tax cut by eliminating waste, cutting bureaucracy and consultants, and capping spending with a dollar-for-dollar law.
And NDP leader Jagmeet Singh was in Montreal, where he announced he wants to build 100% affordable homes on federal land.
We're going to fight for you. Our plan is, when we see federal land, we want to use all of it, 100% of federal land that's usable, to build homes that are affordable, homes that are non-market housing, homes that are truly affordable, where you can actually afford to call your own, a home to put a roof over your head, a place to call your own. That's what we want to do.
Joining us now is Liberal strategist Andrew Perez to unpack the first full day of the federal election campaign. Andrew, thanks for joining us today.
Great to be here.
Now, the polls right now show a tight race between the Liberals and the Conservatives. What are going to be some of the key points for Mark Carney over the next month to capitalize on his momentum?
I think Mark Carney needs to continue doing what he's been doing in his first week as prime minister, and that is to demonstrate leadership and to show Canadians that he is best qualified and best positioned to stand up to Donald Trump and, confront this crisis that we're in. And it goes far beyond merely retaliatory tariffs. It goes to transforming our economy. And I think that will be a key theme from a policy point of view throughout this election campaign. Mr. Carney speaking to his vision for the country, a country where we build large scale infrastructure and natural resource projects. We get goods to market. A country where we cut taxes for modest and middle income Canadians. A country where we focus like a laser on productivity and growth. We know that Canada is will be dead last when it comes to productivity over the coming decades. And so I fully expect Mr. Carney and the Liberal team to continue unveiling an ambitious vision for a more prosperous, a more just country, and a country that doesn't take the relationship with the US for granted, a country that diversifies our trading relationships across the world and cuts down interprovincial trade barriers, for example.
And what can or should the Conservatives do to push back, given that just a few months ago they were as much as 20 points up on the Liberals?
It's been an unprecedented reversal in public opinion polling, Teresa. I have never seen polling reverse in such a short period of time as I have in the last 2 months. What the Conservatives need to do, they're in between a rock and a hard spot. But what they need to do is return to the bread and butter issues that they had been raising for a 2-year period that led them to have a 20 to 25 point lead over the Trudeau-led Liberal Party. That is to say, focusing in on the affordability crisis, rising costs, inflation, crime, getting the budget balanced, dealing with the immigration system that Canadians have lost confidence in. So the Conservatives, they need to return to that issue set, but be able to tie it to the trade war that we're in the throes of now. And I think that will be the challenge, tying in those domestic policy issues to the moment that we're in, and demonstrating that it's Pierre Poilievre who actually can go toe to toe with Donald Trump. Because so far, I think Mark Carney is winning the narrative when it comes to the trade war and who would best be able to deal with the crisis we're in.
Now, many have pointed out that the NDP under Jagmeet Singh have essentially collapsed. Is there a path for them to turn that around and become competitive over the next month, or is it kind of a done deal?
Well, never say never in politics, Teresa, but they are in a very, very difficult situation. Um, they are in free fall, I would say. Recent polling shows the Liberal and Conservative parties neck and neck at about 37, 38% popular support each, with the NDP languishing between 10 and 13% support across the country. The key threat that the NDP faces is being sucked out of this race. It becomes a polarized contest between Liberals and Conservatives, and we see that many new Democrats are fleeing to a Carney-led Liberal Party. And so perhaps there's an opportunity for Singh to point out that Mr. Carney is more of a centrist, if not center-right Liberal. Perhaps he can woo left of center, more socially progressive Liberals to the NDP. But I think even that is going to be very difficult, because I think a lot of NDP supporters are open to supporting Mark Carney because they see Carney as the only leader that can stop the Conservative Party.
And what do you make of Mark Carney's decision to run in Nepean and not his home province of Alberta?
I think it was a smart move, Teresa, politically, but also I think it was the right thing to do. Mr. Carney has spent nearly 20 years living in Ottawa, raising his family there, working as a senior public servant in the finance department, and then rising to governor of the Bank of Canada. He's given back to the Ottawa community, and he's lived in Ottawa for the past 5 years when he returned from England. And so I think it makes sense for him to run in Ottawa. Yes, he has roots in Edmonton. He grew up in Edmonton, playing hockey and attending public schools, but he has not lived in Edmonton for decades. And so I think this was the right move. Nepean is traditionally a Liberal riding. It's a good microcosm for Canada. It's a middle-class suburban riding, and I expect that he will be able to hold that riding easily for the Liberal Party.
Now, some are arguing that the optics are not great, given that he's filling a riding where the party just kicked out an MP who held the seat since 2015. What do you make of that criticism?
I don't agree with that analysis. Mr. Chandra Arya was disqualified from the leadership campaign and more recently disqualified from running, to your point. But the Liberal Party, has a green light committee that vets MPs and candidates. They follow their due diligence, and I trust the judgment of the Liberal Party. This is not a decision that they would take lightly, and so they've barred Mr. Arya from running. And again, Nepean is an Ottawa riding where Mr. Carney lives and has spent most of his career and most of his life.
Now, both the Conservatives and the Liberals have started to ramp up their attack ads on Mark Carney. What do you think are the most impactful criticisms of Mr. Carney?
I haven't found the criticisms to date to be very impactful, Teresa. The Conservatives are suggesting that Mr. Carney is a globalist, that he's not in it for the average Canadian. Even now, suggestions that he's sneaky. We're seeing that coming out in a lot of the ads. I don't think any of these criticisms are uh, particularly believable, and I don't think that Canadians are buying them. So we'll see what the Conservatives do in terms of pivoting their criticism of Mr. Carney. The one potential criticism is that Mr. Carney has never been a politician, that he's not served in Parliament, that he's not experienced from a political point of view. But I argue that at the time in which we live, I'm not sure being a career politician is really an asset. And so perhaps Mr. Carney's weakness could be actually positioned as a core strength. He's not a politician. He's meeting the moment. He's entering public life because he loves this country and he wants to defend this country at a very precarious time for our economy and our own sovereignty.
Well, Andrew, thank you so much for the time today.
Thank you. Take care.
Stay with us. When we return, we'll be speaking to Brendan Caldwell, director at Caldwell Securities Limited, to discuss the rise of inflation amid the ongoing uncertainty surrounding tariffs from the U.S.
So, yeah, if we add tariffs, it will raise the cost. Inflation's already higher than people expect.
Canadians are now facing updated travel advisories to the world's two largest economies after Ottawa warned travelers who stay in the United States for over 30 days to make sure they register as required. The advisory for the United States follows another update for travel to China, where Canadians with dual citizenship have been warned to use Canadian credentials when presenting to Chinese authorities. The updated advisory said visitors can consult with U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services website to check if they need to register and how to do so. Canada's oldest company began liquidating most of its stores this morning. Hudson's Bay says all but 6 of its locations will be selling off their inventory and aims to wrap up the liquidation by June 15th. Gift cards will be accepted until April 6th, but loyalty points cannot be used. The 6 stores omitted from the liquidation sale include the flagship on Yonge Street in Toronto, as well as a location in the city's Yorkdale Mall and another farther north in Richmond Hill, Ontario. The remaining 3 are in Quebec and downtown Montreal, the Carrefour Laval Mall, and Pointe-Claire. This week, the Bank of Canada will release its summary of deliberations for its recent rate decision. That's when the central bank cut its key policy interest rate by 0.25 percentage point to 2.75%. Last week, Governor Tiff Macklem said that the uncertainty surrounding U.S. tariffs is already taking a toll on the economy as businesses delay investments.
We now face a new economic crisis. Since President Trump began threatening to impose a wide range of tariffs on Canadian exports, uncertainty has increased sharply. And depending on the extent and duration of tariffs, the economic impact could be severe. The uncertainty is already causing harm. There's a lot we don't know. Some new tariffs are in place on steel, aluminum, as well as goods not in compliance with the Canada-US-Mexico agreement. We don't know how long these tariffs will last. And we don't know if tariffs will broaden to other sectors. In the last 2 months, the U.S. administration has twice imposed and then retracted universal tariffs on all imports from Canada and Mexico. President Trump has also threatened to extend tariffs to a wide range of industries, including autos, semiconductors, and pharmaceuticals. And he has recently repeatedly said new reciprocal tariffs are coming on April 2nd on many countries, although it's really not clear exactly what that means. Most disturbing of all for Canadians President Trump has threatened our sovereignty, repeatedly referring to Canada as the 51st state. There can be no question about our sovereignty or our border.
We're now joined by Brendan Caldwell, director at Caldwell Securities Limited, for more on inflation and the ongoing trade war. Brendan, thank you for joining us.
Well, you're most welcome, Teresa. Isn't that the ancient curse? May you live in interesting times.
Now, Statistics Canada recently reported that Canada's annual inflation rate rose to 2.6% last month. How might the ongoing tariff uncertainty impact this figure?
Well, it could make it bigger if, in fact, we do in Canada do reciprocal tariffs. That is, if we start slapping tariffs on American goods, and we do import rather a lot from the United States, if that will actually increase the cost. So it's one of the reasons I don't think reciprocal tariffs are a particularly good idea. Tariffs is the surest way to ruin. We saw that 90 years ago when countries decided to get into a trade war. So yeah, if we add tariffs, it will raise the cost. Inflation's already higher than people expect, despite the fact the economy, as the Bank of Canada governor was just saying, the economy is quite slow. I mean, we have a word for this. It was coined in the late 70s called stagflation, where you have inflation going up but the economy not growing. Not a good situation to be in. The additional tariffs could add challenges to it.
And a significant number of Gen Z and millennial Canadians have cited finances as their primary source of stress, with the looming trade war being a key factor. Why would you say that young people are particularly affected by financial concerns?
So this is one of the conversations we're going to have, Teresa, about how someone in a tweed vest should know how to fix the younger generation's issues. I haven't a clue. I'm just disappointed and sad for them that their biggest issue isn't dating apps. I think the challenges are considerable, and every generation going back to the 1930s, when it was actually true, to bring up that topic again, didn't think that they would be better off than their parents. The baby boom generation, the world was terrible for them. Gen X, all the John Hughes movies were about how we were never going to quite measure up. And, flash forward to the present. Now, there are unique challenges to this generation. So I can see they're really believing that it's not going to work out for them because the price of everything is so high. Not so much what we measure in inflation, but the lifestyle type of investments, like a house, like family, like having kids, assuming that those are goals this present generation still has. All of those seem a lot harder to achieve with the level of competition and the level of prices, which aren't adequately captured in the consumer price index, in the CPI.
And what advice do you have for Gen Z and millennial Canadians navigating these worries?
I would begin by having hope. Now, hope is itself not a strategy. So I think there are opportunities. As I've said, you and I have talked about before, you know more about the technology and what is happening and how the technology can be used than I ever will. It is a much more of a first language for younger people than it is for 50-somethings. So that's one. Two, do capitalize on what you do know. Make a list of your assets. And speaking of assets, I do think putting a little bit of money aside every month, whether it's $50 or $200 or $500 or $1,000, whatever you can slightly not afford, whatever you just sort of notice, so that you have a bit of money that can grow set aside from everything else you might be doing. I would put it in some sort of growth type investment, a growth mutual fund or something. It doesn't even matter if this market goes up or down, because if you're adding to it on a monthly basis, as you and I have discussed, you're going to get the benefit of dollar cost averaging and have that money grow for you. And one can just think more clearly and make better decisions if you know you have a bit of money set aside for just such an emergency.
Now, Mark Carney has mentioned a few times in his recent campaign that he's hoping to help younger Canadians and give them the same opportunities that the older generations had when it comes to savings or being able to send their future children to university or college or things like that. How much do you think that helps younger Canadians with dealing with stress, knowing that they do have a prime minister and, a potential prime minister in the future in their corner?
Well, I would hope that the Prime Minister is not against any Canadians. The last measure that Mr. Carney's party did put forward to try and help the younger generation was to raise the capital gains inclusion rate, which apparently Mr. Carney has decided to kill in the last few days. The thought process there is they would tax the older generation and thereby have more money available for the younger generation. The trouble is the younger generation can do math, and they realize that if the older generation was taxed to a greater degree, there would be less money for them, less inheritance to be passed on. They might not be able to afford the family cottage because there was a big tax burden on it. So it wasn't the winner from a policy perspective that I think the Liberal government thought it was going to be. So I would hope that going forward, what will be the policy of whatever government is formed is one that just makes it easier for Canadians to figure out their own solutions. That the government doesn't actually have to fix everything. It's not actually their job to make everything better. If they make it everything a little easier, less bureaucracy, less tax, less burden, then I think it does open up opportunities for younger people to start businesses and take advantage of the opportunities that were there during, frankly, much lower tax regimes. My older generation, enjoyed much lower tax regimes when we were accumulating our wealth than what young people face today.
And many small businesses are facing similar financial pressures. What steps can they take to prepare for additional costs?
My father and I were just having this discussion earlier today. It is very tough. We were talking to one of the ladies in the food court, runs the Italian restaurant under the Exchange Tower, and she's giving up. Rents are too high, costs are too high. I think for small businesses, to the extent that you are able to buy the building that you're in, that is going to stand you in good stead. I would take the same advice I give for younger people. Put a little bit of money aside, separate than your business, because it would allow you to weather storms and take advantage of opportunities more easily.
And how can investment advisors assist their clients in planning for an unpredictable Canadian economy?
Oh, goodness. I'm kind of put in mind of that discount brokerage firm ad where they superciliously say, "You're not still dealing with Dad's guy, are you?" Well, look, Dad's guys probably serve Dad, whoever Dad might be, fairly well. And it's so much easier to get along with other people's parents. Similarly, it's so much easier to get along with other people's kids. So I would suggest this. Take advantage of Dad's guy, whoever Dad's guy might be or advisor might be, because older people do like to give advice. And if it's not coming from your parents, it's a little easier to take. So that's my suggestion.
Second Lady Usha Vance will be taking a trip to Greenland, with the trip underscored by U.S. President Donald Trump's imperialist pursuits of claiming the self-governing mineral-rich territory for the U.S.
Hello. I'm so excited to share that I'll be visiting Kalaalleq, Greenland, next weekend. I'm particularly thrilled to visit during our National Dog Sled Race, which our country is proud to support as a sponsor. I've been reading all about it with my children, and I'm amazed by the incredible skill and teamwork that it takes to participate in this race. I'm also coming to celebrate the long history of mutual respect and cooperation between our nations, and to express hope that our relationship will only grow stronger in the coming years. I look forward to meeting many of you soon, and to learning from you about your beautiful land, culture, and traditions. See you soon.
Ms. Vance will leave on Thursday and return on Saturday, according to her office. Greenland's prime minister said a planned visit to the island by U.S. officials, including the second lady, is, quote, highly aggressive. Hundreds of Greenlanders took to the streets on Saturday to protest against Mr. Trump's stated goal of taking control of their island. Hundreds of thousands of people gathered outside Istanbul City Hall this weekend in Turkey to protest the arrest of the city's mayor. A court has formally arrested the mayor and ordered him jailed until a trial on corruption charges can be held. His imprisonment is widely regarded as a political move to remove a major contender from the next presidential race currently scheduled for 2028. An Israeli airstrike on a hospital in Gaza killed a senior Hamas leader and an aide on Sunday evening. The head of the group's financial affairs was killed in the strike on Nasser Hospital, the main medical facility in Khan Yunis. A Hamas official said that he was receiving treatment at the hospital after being wounded in an airstrike 4 days ago. Israel's military said it had struck a key Hamas member operating inside the hospital compound following an extensive intelligence gathering process. The spokesperson for Benjamin Netanyahu confirmed the death this morning in a press conference.
Next to Gaza, I can confirm that Israel has eliminated Ismail Barhum, Hamas's head of finances and institutions. Of course, he was successor to Issam al-Dalis, the former head of Hamas's government, who was killed just last week. Barhum funded Hamas's terror operations, arming terrorists and orchestrating attacks on our people. He was struck while hiding in Nasser Hospital, once again exposing Hamas's use of human shields. The BBC reported that he was receiving treatment there. Israel is escalating military operations in Gaza. Why? To eliminate Hamas's leadership, dismantle terror infrastructure, and secure the return of 50 hostages. 59 hostages remain in Gaza. Hamas has repeatedly rejected all negotiation efforts, including those by US envoy Witkoff. Israel will continue to act with increasing military strength. Our ground forces are operating throughout the Strip to eliminate terrorists and terror infrastructure, to expand the security zone and create a partial buffer between the north and the south of the Strip. Decisively, Israel is destroying Hamas's capabilities and protecting our people.
The Gaza Health Ministry said on Monday that Israeli strikes across the Gaza Strip have killed more than 60 Palestinians, nearly a week after Israel ended its ceasefire with Hamas. Meanwhile, officials say that Egypt has introduced a new proposal to try and get the Israel-Hamas ceasefire back on track. An Egyptian official said that Hamas would release 5 living hostages in return for Israel allowing humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip and a weeks-long pause in the fighting. Israel would also release hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. When asked about the ceasefire proposal, a spokesperson for the Prime Minister said they would not be providing commentary on the running negotiations.
We won't be providing a running commentary on the negotiations. We've told you before that this action in Gaza, which the Prime Minister and the Defence Minister, together with the Security Cabinet, have instructed our defence forces to take this strong action against Hamas terrorist organisation. The reason we're taking this action is firstly that Hamas rejected 2 concrete mediation proposals by Presidential Envoy Mr. Steve Witkoff, together with the other mediators, but also that Hamas has rejected all of the proposals. And secondly, we are well aware, Israel has knowledge that Hamas was preparing to carry out terror attacks against our people. They were using this ceasefire to build up their forces, to rearm and to re-attack. And as a result, with the approval of the government, Israel's armed forces launched this precise, preemptive strikes against Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad targets throughout the Gaza Strip.
According to local Ukrainian officials and emergency services, Russia launched a bombardment of drones across Ukraine overnight Sunday that killed at least 7 people. Russia launched 147 drones across Ukraine, according to the Ukrainian Air Force. Ukrainian air defenses shot down 97 and 25 others didn't reach targets due to Ukrainian countermeasures. The attacks come ahead of ceasefire negotiations in Saudi Arabia today. Speaking on Fox News Sunday, Mr. Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, said that he expected some real progress at the talks in Saudi Arabia.
I feel that he wants peace. The president had two very productive calls this week, or last week, I should say, one with President Zelensky, one with President Putin. I sat and listened to both of them. In both conversations, it was all about a lasting peace. Lots of progress got made last week. The parties agreed to an energy infrastructure moratorium on attacks for energy infrastructure. I think that you're going to see in Saudi Arabia on Monday some real progress, particularly as it affects a Black Sea ceasefire on ships between both countries. And from that, you'll naturally gravitate into a full-on shooting ceasefire.
And a U.S. delegation has begun a high-stakes meeting with Kremlin negotiators in Saudi Arabia, where the Trump administration is pushing for a ceasefire in separate talks with Russia and Ukraine. A wide gulf in expectations exists between Russia, Ukraine, and the U.S. Moscow says a ceasefire will not be possible unless Kyiv agrees not to use it to resupply or reorganize its troops. Speaking later on Sunday, Volodymyr Zelensky said the onus is on Russian President Vladimir Putin to end the war, saying, quote, "The one who brought this war must take it away." Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Novak Djokovic apparently share a passion for tennis, along with their beliefs about vaccines. Mr. Kennedy, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, posted a photo on X on Sunday of himself and Djokovic standing on a tennis court holding tennis rackets. Mr. Kennedy rejected an anti-vaccine label earlier this year during his Senate confirmation hearings, but has since repeated his skeptical views of vaccines in interviews and other public statements. Djokovic is the career leader in men's tennis with 24 Grand Slam championships, but missed chances to win more because of a refusal to get vaccinated against COVID-19. Pope Francis has returned to the Vatican after a 5-week hospitalization for life-threatening double pneumonia. The frail pontiff made a surprise stop at his favorite basilica on the way home before beginning 2 months of prescribed rest and recovery. Francis's motorcade from Gemelli Hospital overshot the Vatican initially and took a detour across town to stop at St. Mary's Major Basilica, where the Pope's favorite icon of the Madonna is located. Doctors say that Francis should refrain from meeting with big groups of people or overexerting himself. Walt Disney's live-action controversy bedeviled Snow White opened in theaters to a sluggish $43 million in ticket sales, according to studio estimates. The film had a budget of over $250 million and had set out with higher ambitions as Disney returned to its origins with the 1937 Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs being the company's first animated feature. The run-up to the release of the film follows controversy over its handling of the dwarfs, who are rendered in CGI, and backlash over comments by its star, Rachel Zegler. I'm Teresa Skubic, and that'll do it for your look at national and international news for today. For more news on demand, you can always visit our website at forumdailynews.ca and make sure to follow us on our social media handles. You can also watch all of our commentary programming on the Newsforum YouTube channel. Thanks for joining us on Forum Daily News. We'll see you next time. Good night, Canada.